Digital 410 Productions proudly presents the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast with your hosts Dodd Abernathy, Jeff Copsetta, and Henry Sledge.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast, your favorite World War II-based podcast. It's been a long 4 days, but we're here, we're together, and apparently we got a lot to talk about. But before we get to this and that, let me introduce the fellas. Joining us, as always, from Texas, Mr. Jeff Copsetta. Jeff, sir, how are you?
Great. How are you?
And joining us always, as always, is Mr. Henry Sledge. Henry, how are you?
Great. How are you guys?
Doing well, all things considering. So, just to give a real quick rundown, if you're interested about my trip to Kentucky, just go ahead and tune into the What's in Your Head podcast tomorrow, because I'm sure we'll do a good 30 minutes on it. I will say I left on Thursday about 4 hours after subtropical storm, and then Category 1 Nicole hit the East Coast, jacked it all up, and then flew across the center of the state and hung a hard right and went north, which means as my plane was flying through the area, we caught up with it and flew over it a little bit. And there's something interesting to be said about riding on a plane while reading a book about the 101st Airborne and how they were catching flack during the D-Day invasion while your plane's dropping up and down in real life. Like, wow, this is like being in a virtual reality. So I got to enjoy the experience of a turbulent flight while reading a book about turbulent flight. And I have to say, reading the book took my mind off of the real life turbulent flight. And chances are, if I wasn't reading the book, I probably would have paid a lot more attention to it and got a little bit more concerned. But with that being said, all things are good until we landed and the plane fell about 4 feet out of the air and slammed on the back tires. And then we slowly had to wait while the police arrested a man for harassing a wife and a mother on the plane because, well, after all, when you fly on Frontier and you don't pay for the seats, your family gets split up. It was interesting. I was sitting next to a young man who was probably about 12, 13. His dad was on the other side, and I'm reading my book and got on my service boots because, well, they're brand new, and I'm going to a funeral, and I'm trying to keep my check-in down, so instead of bringing a bunch of different shoes, I just put on my boots and had my M1 jacket on because, well, it was 89 degrees here, but it got down to 32 in Kentucky. But as I'm reading my book, I look down at his phone, and he's watching Midway. I said, yeah, cool. And then halfway through the flight, his dad starts talking to him. He's like, well, I didn't get a chance to watch Kelly's Heroes this weekend. I said, apparently someone's in the World War II.
Wow, you had me there.
Yeah, so I talked to him. Talked to him and his dad a little bit about World War II, and then the fine people on Frontier let my tall 6'5" ass get out of the middle seat and move to the bulkhead seat about 3 lanes in front of them. To which point, I hear later on the same flight attendant came to tell the father that the police will be waiting at the gates in Cincinnati because apparently, as much as I can understand, his wife sitting up front because they didn't buy assigned seatings was getting harassed by the gentleman next to her in such a manner that the airline felt it was appropriate to have him arrested. Don't know exactly what happened because shout out to the crazy dick who got arrested. He did not make a scene, so while we were waiting on the tarmac for 30 minutes, it was nice and quiet. I was just kind of wondering, like, why didn't they just let him off and have a flight attendant walk behind him with a finger just pointing down at his head so once he got off the tunnel, they could arrest him out there so we could all get off the plane. But didn't make a scene in any of that. And went on about my business, and then, as we all heard, what happened in Dallas. But before we get to that, Jeff, you were there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about what was happening before what happened, because obviously you had a whole day, and I'm sure before that happened, you probably were enjoying your afternoon. And were you there as a spectator? Were you there on an official capacity? Did you have a display set up? What was your day like prior to what happened?
Yeah, so here was the plan. I have not been able to actually enjoy an air show since I was 16 years old. And I planned on, we'll get dressed up, we'll go up there, and we'll just enjoy an air show. So I took my son and 2 of his best friends from high school, and all 4 of us were dressed up. We got a couple hotel rooms for a couple nights. We went up Friday after school and got out there at the tarmac about 07, maybe 07:30. It was brisk. It was you needed to be wearing that A2 jacket, but that's what we wanted because
sure.
Yeah, we've been pushing 90 the past couple weeks, and it's just been getting old, and you're like, you want to get in the spirit, and then you just see pumpkins drooping and melting, and it's just not fall. So we wanted fall weather, and we got a big storm, not a big storm, but just kind of a big cold front Friday, made the temperatures plummet into the 30s that night. So it was perfect, right? Just that England weather, early morning, watching the sun come up.
But don't be fooled. Jeff's dedicated. Even if it was 97, he would have had the same uniform on. He would just been a little sweatier.
Fact.
Absolutely. That's why we're crazy. That's how I got heat exhaustion doing a photo shoot with the Memphis Belle in the middle of August in Florida.
Right. So yeah, it was just, I was really excited because Logan's best friend, his dad had surprised him with a ride, and he had no idea. He just said, hey, my dad's going to drive up with my little brother, and I got to meet him at the gate at like 8:50, and he's got a surprise for me. And we all knew what it was, but he didn't. So he meets his dad, and he comes back with this little badge that says that he's going to ride in Texas Raiders that morning.
Now, for some listeners who may not watch the news or may not be familiar with what Texas Raider was, what type of aircraft is it, or was it at that time?
So, yeah, that's the B-17 G model that was staged out of the Houston wing of the Commemorative Air Force. And it's a main staple for a lot of the air shows here in Texas because, it's right here. It's based in Texas, and,
it's in the name.
The Commemorative Air Force is all over the country, right? But Texas Raiders was really one of the main aircraft, one of the main attractions. If you went to the Houston or wings over Dallas, it's come right here to burn it for our air shows, all over.
And over the last 3 or 4 days, I've seen a plethora of photos from the Florida World War II community where that particular plane had been down here to a few of our reoccurring air shows, and so that particular plane made its rounds amongst the air shows and the living history community. As far as displays go, this thing was a well-traveled, a well-maintained bird.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd been in it a few times and got to talk with the crew a couple of years ago and asked, to get a little special treatment and get up into I've never been in the bombardier seat of a B-17. So these guys were really cool and let me go through. So the plan was that after Logan's friend, he flew in Texas Raiders in the B-17. And when he was taking care of that, it's early in the morning, the air show, the gates open at 9. So he's off getting his briefing with that. They were going to fly at 10. We just kind of got absorbed. The guy that runs the living history group up there at the air show, or the ground forces, came up to me, and I'm sure I met him. I don't recall meeting him, but he was saying how he was wondering if I was going to be there and glad to see me and hoping that I was going to participate. And okay. So I went from enjoying an air show to playing along, of course. But it's nothing at all like the normal work that I did. I didn't have to talk to the crowd or worry about weapon systems or anything like that. I literally I brought my footlocker with me, thank goodness, and one of my baseball gloves. And I tied in with this really great group of Air Corps reenactors, and I'll talk about them later.
Now, was your son dressed up too?
Yeah. So, yeah, Logan he won his 82nd Airborne. And then the two friends that were with him, one was 6th Ranger Battalion, and the other one was German Wehrmacht.
So you had it all covered.
Yeah. So it was the Wehrmacht that was flying in the B-17. So, it couldn't have been a weirder combination of things, but the kid was just tickled pink, right? He's never flown an airplane before. He's a senior in high school. He's 17 years old. He just took his ASVAB.
And by the way, last week you were talking about how he was considering getting out of the hobby, and so this probably reinvigorated him.
Absolutely. So yeah, we send Aiden off to go fly on the B-17, and a couple of us grabbed some baseball gloves. And just after the 17 landed is when the air show kind of started with the acts, and the acts kind of go chronologically through World War II. So you start with the Tora, Pearl Harbor scene. So
now, is this one of those types where they got the pyrotechnics, the gas explosions and all that sort of thing, and the guy on the PA kind of giving a rundown, your normal air show fare?
Right. Yeah. So if you've ever seen the Tour act, yeah, it's narrated, and so we go out in front of the crowd line there, and just threw a baseball around. We had some vehicles out there. We kind of convoyed out in some Jeeps and weapons carriers, in front of the crowd and wave and everything, do our thing, and then we just kind of set up. Yeah, the boys took their jackets off. They're in white t-shirts. We're just in a triangle throwing a baseball around with 1940s gloves.
Isn't it amazing what you can do and get away with at an air show just because you have the right clothes on? There's been so many times like you get access to stuff that the general public does, and just because you have the uniform on, it's like It's such a great perk.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, and again, this is a whole lot easier than what I used to have to do at Wings Over Dallas. So yeah, okay, I can throw the baseball around with my son and his buddy. So that's what we did, and they had some ladies out there in their dresses and their sun hats, and they were having a picnic, watching these boys throw a baseball around. And yeah, and then you hear, like you said, it's narrated, so people get a little bit of history, and then we look up, and there's 9 Tour birds in one formation of 4 and another formation of 5 aircraft. The Zeros, the Vals, the Kates, and they come in kind of from behind the crowd towards the runway, and then they just start peeling off one at a time, make a loop around, and as they're going left to right and right to left, pyrotechnics are going off everywhere, right? So they're just the air raid sirens going on. We're ducking for cover, getting 30 cals and 50 cals up, on the Jeeps, and we're just shooting back at them, all blank firing ammunition. Guys are shooting with their Thompsons and 1911s, just trying to recreate the havoc that was,
fun.
Pearl Harbor. And this is the first time that I'd seen, they actually have a replica P-35 that takes off. Usually it was a P-40, but I've never seen their P-35. It's not original. It's, it's a replica, but the 35 takes off in the middle of all this nonsense, and man, he starts dogfighting these Zeros. It was just really just a great show of just unbelievable choreography. Now you have 10 fighters in the air, and then, oh wait, the B-17s that were due to land from the mainland that came in during the attack. Here comes the Texas Raiders B-17 right in the middle of Kates and Zeros strafing back and forth. Everything's blowing up. They're talking about that over the narration. The flight of B-17s is here. They don't have any guns. They can't fight back. They're low on fuel. They're getting hit, and all that. And the next time Texas Raiders makes a pass, one landing gear's up, one gear's down, number 3 engines trailing smoke. It's just, so now you've got 11 aircraft. Everywhere you look, there's just airplanes and smoke and explosions. And it's amazing. And every time I've been a part of that little baseball thing, it's so humbling, man. I mean, you feel the emotion. You feel we're reenacting.
Yeah.
Nobody's in any, real potential harm, but, at least for us on the ground, it's still very dangerous as pilots, of course, but, you kind of get what those, a little bit of a sense of, holy smokes, like we're just getting pummeled. I couldn't imagine, if we had 9 aircraft coming over attacking. I couldn't imagine 180 attacking in such a small area. The sound would have been, multiplied thousands of times from what the pyrotechnics we were using. The debris that had to have been flying around, the fear, just you feel a little bit of that. You almost kind of get scared. And even my son was saying the same thing. He took a hit in the leg and he's laying there, and somebody took a trouser belt off and giving him a tourniquet, trying to keep him warm, taking a jacket off, covering him up, and he's freaking out. We had a couple medics running for him. Somebody else goes to help him. He gets hit, nothing's really choreographed. It's just in the moment and, what you could feel. And, he kind of said the same thing. Like, he was just like, it was like you were scared.
Yeah.
It's that powerful of a show. So tour finishes. The 9 aircraft come over, and they're all just in line, blowing their smoke oil. So there's just 9 white stripes going across the sky, and Texas Raiders flying with them, and one final, photo pass for the crowd. And then we went off to meet some World War II vets. And man, the Colonel Joe McPhail, and I sent you guys a picture of him. I think he, according to his son, He's the last surviving Corsair pilot from World War II that flew Corsairs. This is a picture of him behind me. I met him for the first time about 5 or 6 years ago. I've met him, I think, 4 times since then. And I was blown away when I walked up to him and he remembered me. When we shook hands, I was blown away. He's 101 years old, sitting at the table. So I sat down with him and we just kind of cut up for a few minutes. And his son said, man, do you know about this new Corsair movie that's coming out? Matter of fact, we do. We just had the author of the book that the movie's based on our show about 5 days ago.
Yep.
So, oh man, you're kidding. Oh, because Dad flew into Korea too. He was in the Death Rattlers in Korea. So talking all about that, talking about Adam Makos, and just having a ball with this guy. Then we meet one of the last Rosie the Riveters.
Really?
She's 98 years old. She worked on B-29s. Her name was Connie. And one of Logan's buddies that was with me, dressed as 6 Rangers, he was waiting in line, and he tells you, he said, look, I got somebody here with me that would like to take, a picture with you behind the table there. So when I walked up, she kind of waved me over. I guess it was her daughter kind of waved me over. And okay, so I just cut in front of the line and sat down next to her like I'd known her. And I put my arm around her. I said, hey, Connie, how you doing? I said, you remember me? And she just kind of looked at me. No. I said, you don't remember me? I said, we went on a date back in 43. Of course, she starts cracking up. Everybody in line's cracking up. So it was just really cool to talk to her. She said she was 4 foot 8 inches tall.
Wow.
She said there wasn't anywhere in that B-29 I couldn't get to.
They had her in all the tight spots.
So it was great. We're eating chow, and we watched Fifi. And if you're not familiar with Fifi, it's the airworthy B-29. We watched Fifi come in and taxi right in front of us. Took some pictures of some of the other warbirds that were sitting there. Finally got to see the Helldiver, a couple C-47s, a couple C-45s, about 3 C-45s. A P-51D, a P-51C. Of course, the P-63 was sitting there. And so at this time, the Doolittle raid was going on. The B-25 and the PBJ were airborne, and they're blowing stuff up. And then it was kind of the air war. So the B-24 takes off, and the P-51s, the B-17, and the P-63, and then kind of showing a coordinated attack, and the escort fighters escorting our heavy bombers, Air War Europe, Air War Pacific. And I walked into a little, like a modular building, a little portable building that was done up just like a little mini house during World War II. Had a little victory garden outside. The whole front porch was decorated, little blue star hanging in the window. And inside it was just home front display. And there was about 4 ladies standing outside in 40s dresses and veils and skirts. And the girls were done up, dressed to the nines, man. And went in and started talking with one, and a CAF, I guess, official photographer. He's got a camera lens about this big, with this big camera. He calls to one of the girls. He said, "Hey, there's a good looking Air Corps officer behind you that really needs his picture taken with you." And we just kind of looked at each other like, okay, I guess we'll take our picture together. I said, look, lady, I'm just following orders. My name's Jeff. She goes, me too. I'm Jamie. Okay, nice to meet you. So we're taking pictures inside of the house. And I don't know, he took 5 gazillion pictures, and I gave him my business card. He said, hey, don't be surprised if you see yourself in the CAF dispatch. And I said, okay, great. And then you hear the explosions going on outside from the air war. So walk outside, and way more black smoke than there should have been. And it was a bit more quiet than it was all day. And I kind of just peeked up over the crowd, and I could see siren, like lights, ambulance lights racing down the runway. And a woman coming the other way past me, just crying, sobbing in tears. And I looked at Jamie and the kiddo, Logan's buddy that was next to me. Dude, what happened? And there was a guy kind of turning around, just trying to get his composure, holding his mouth. And he said that P-51 just hit the B-17. And I said, you're kidding me. He said, no. He said that the plane's just disintegrated. I said, the B-17's gone. He said, yeah. He said, it was just cut in half.
Yeah.
I can't believe it was just cut in half. And so the B-24 flew over, and one of the Air Corps guys that I was with said, man, well, there's the two P-51s right there. It couldn't have been a P-51 that hit it. And I think somebody else overheard and corrected. They said that was the P-63, the King Cobra that hit it. And we just kind of slowly walked up to the, we weren't far from the crowd line.
Where was your son? Was he with you too?
He was actually getting chow with his buddy that flew in the 17 that day. And he actually saw the tail section. He heard the explosion and saw the smoke, and kind of same thing like that. That doesn't sound like the pyrotechnics. And he thought he saw what looked like a tail section, but he said it wasn't from Texas Raiders. He just was like, man, there's like debris coming out of that pyrotechnic. Something, we didn't actually, we weren't watching the aircraft like 40,000 other people were, so we didn't see the before. We just saw the almost immediately after. And guys, I've been around. This is not the first World War II bird, crash that I've been around or that I've personally had something to do with. I'll tell you, I didn't have anything to do with this one at all, but my passion for B-17s, my passion for the guys and the girls that are in this hobby. And I didn't realize how tight the hobby was, I don't think, until Saturday afternoon, because within 30 minutes, I mean, we were there. So the air show's canceled, right?
Sure.
There's a pre-recorded, just in case contingency public address that says an unplanned incident has occurred.
Now, are they actively trying to funnel people off the property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It was everybody leave. Dallas police is asking everybody to please leave the air show immediately, remain calm. It's been an unplanned incident. Please leave through the north gate. Because there was pieces of everything all over the road that we came in on. And I think one other highway.
Yeah. I heard the news report saying it was on the highway.
So for 40 to 50,000 people to get in their cars and all go out one gravel road,
and half of them in shock because they watched it.
Right. It was just unbelievable. And people are they're on their knees crying. Grown men are crying. People that just love the hobby, feeling for the families. I've never been around so many people and hear so much silence. Then the theme actually for Pacific, just the just that music, just started playing on a loop over the loudspeakers. And but again, I never realized how close we are as a community in living history in the World War II community, because literally within 30 minutes, the first phone call I got was from, if you follow them on Instagram, Pacific War Relics in Hawaii called me. Naturally, History Chick, Oregon. My buddy Yoshiro in Hiroshima, Japan. Folks from New Jersey, other guys from all over Texas, a reenactor buddy of mine stationed in Germany. Within a matter of hours, because a lot of people knew I was going to be there. I told some people that Logan's buddy was flying in that airplane as a surprise. I just had no idea there was that many people that were going to reach out, checking on me, checking on Logan and his buddies, just checking on our overall well-being, knowing that we are so passionate about this. And it brings it home, guys. And I told my boys this that were with me. I said, guys, this is an amazing air show. We met the last surviving Corsair pilot. We talked to one of the last Roger the Riveters. We got to do stuff that people usually don't get to do. To play baseball in the Pearl Harbor thing, right? I mean, that was amazing. Those guys went out doing exactly what they loved. Probably could not have imagined a better way to go, if there is a good way. And they did this because of all those 18 and 19 and 22-year-old boys that got blown out of the skies every day. Those accidents that happened, those B-17 midair collisions in the heavy England fog. those crashes on takeoff, crashes on landing, guys that just never came back. Nobody knows what happened. Or the B-17 that's in a flat spin and you see one chute. All of those things. That's why those guys were doing it. And there's an inherent risk. And it's important for us to think about that and to commemorate what they did. And honestly, to feel more humble in the opportunity that we have here in America, to see what we saw that day, to see at 7:30 in the morning, watching them just rotate those props to get oil up in the cylinders before they cranked it up. I mean, we were watching everything they were doing on Texas Raiders that day. We were right there, right where it was sitting, right in the little hard stand there. It was a tragic event, but it still could not have been a better air show other than the loss of life, because I feel for those people. I feel for their families. But to see the commemoration, to see the dedication from the entire country, from other countries. I just saw Sally B over in England giving their condolences, and Sally B is another B-17. It really hones us in on how important it is what we're doing. We're not just putting on a uniform. We're keeping these memories alive of all those guys. Seeing that pile of black rubble and pall of black smoke really made me think about how many times that was seen on a battlefield in England so many years ago.
I think it's kind of a blessing. I'm just happy, especially your boys. I'm just happy that they were preoccupied doing other things and didn't actually see the collision in real life.
Yeah.
So when you said he was getting chow and you guys were doing a photo shoot, I'm kind of, it makes me feel a little better that they didn't actually witness it.
Oh yeah, I feel for all the 3 and 4 year old kids whose dads were kind of trying to cover their eyes, because it's impactful. Everybody's going to remember that,
And they were flying so low. When I watched that video, it's like the crew in that 17 probably had no idea what happened, because they were so low. Yeah. And I have no comment on anything official about the accident. We'll talk about it probably 2 years from now. I just have my feeling. It's almost, to me, in my personal opinion, nothing official about it, that the P-63 was having an issue. That's exactly what I thought. Once again, like Jeff said, we're just based off of what we saw, the same thing everybody else saw in the video. It's like his aileron or something just got froze up, and he could not move. He could not turn the damn thing. It's almost like the B-17 got in its way. And to really, if that's the case, this day could have been, not that it wasn't bad, but could have been a whole lot worse, because I don't know which video you watched or what angle, but for the crowd, Texas Raiders was moving from left to right. The P-63 kind of came in from the 7 o'clock position to the 17. The P-63 was literally heading towards the crowd. Wow. So if that 63 was making a beeline for planet Earth, the 17 cut it off. And prevented all just huge loss. I can't say that for a fact. It could have gone over anybody. It could have had nothing wrong with it. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm curious if the 63 pilot maybe had time to radio, had some kind of a physical condition all of a sudden, some emergency. He may not have even been conscious. I don't know. Yeah. It just seems like the 63, without making any evasive action, being on just a straight line for so long, it's not like they were, flying head on and you had a split second, oh my gosh, he's right there. 17's just tooling along. Yeah, and it was so low. Like, I saw the video where I think the McDonald's sign was in front of you, the 17 came over your head, and then the other plane came from the left side of the screen, kind of in front of you. And and just like you see in Band of Brothers during, or many of them, it literally just cut it in half. It was, I'm just watching like, holy hell. Yeah, the picture, and I don't suggest anybody go look at it, but the picture that Fox News got a hold of, a still shot, you can make out the nose of the 63, the tail section of the 63, and what you see of Texas Raiders coming apart looks like, if you remember the scene from Memphis Belle when
not the tail gunner, but the co-pilot at the tail gun position takes out the 109, and it takes out Mother and Country.
Yep, that's exactly what it looked like.
Almost identical to that, except it was not a clean break.
Yeah.
It looks like it hit almost at the radio operator compartment, all the way to where there was no top turret. The 17 is still flying level. From the back seat of the pilot, gone. And it's just, man. Anyway, guys, it was a great air show. It was. A lot of good things happened that morning, and that's what we got to focus on.
Yeah. Definitely a rough weekend.
Yeah.
And shout out to Sarah. She did a tremendous job posting the pictures of the pilots and the crew and all those involved as the news came out. She did a nice kind of still frame memorial for each individual as they released the name on their Instagram page. And no editorialization, just here's the photo, here's a nice background, the name, the rank, and a nice caption, and that was all it was needed.
Yeah.
So it's I almost wish we would have started the show off with a little different subject matter than gone into this, because it's like it's hard to transition into a different topic after talking to something, so fresh and relevant.
I know, I get it, and it's just again, I think it rings to how important it is that what we do. It costs lives to do it, and they're not the first.
Yeah.
They are certainly not the first. They were all very well experienced pilots and air crewmen. There's an inherent risk every time you leave terra firma, right? There's an inherent risk with that. They were well aware of that. And then
there's a risk when they just go up and pilot those things on a normal Sunday without doing the show. I mean, and that's exactly. Right. I mean, this is a choreographed show. I'm sure there was hours with the little planes on the sticks doing the whole thing and then working their way up. I mean, and so yes, they definitely knew there was an inherent risk.
All right. Oh, Snafu Pod reached out. And in fact, I was listening to his podcast on the way home when he asked about, what was going on up there, and that I was, he saw that I was there, and, it's stuff like that. It's just, and a big shout out, by the way, to Snafu Pod, because if you have not listened to that, it's incredible. Guys, if you are interested in B-17s in the air war in Europe, this guy nails it. I mean, it's like the Dan Carlin of B-17 podcast. I'm serious. I'd love to talk to this guy more because it's so well done. The episodes are about an hour long, and and again, let's transition out of the out of the bad stuff. Like I said, a lot of good stuff happened this day, and to make these connections or to reinforce these connections that we've had with some of these folks. Adam Akos reached out and was like, man, met a Corsair pilot from World War II and Korea. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it is. It really is. And he's excited to see your movie. This is good stuff. So, to everybody that reenacts any war, any way, let's tip our hats and raise our glasses to those that gave the ultimate sacrifice, remembering those that gave the ultimate sacrifice, and all those who served. And, again, what a way to go. It's Veterans Day weekend.
Yeah.
It's a B-17. It's a P-63. How else could you go? Commemorating, what those boys did. So.
And that plane was up in your neck of the woods not too long ago, wasn't it, Henry?
Yeah, I mean that's the first thing that occurred to me was that is the exact Texas Raiders. That is the exact B-17 that was coming to Coleman, Alabama. Was it last week or the week before? And I was trying to round up a bunch of Jack's buddies and the dads to go, and nobody could go. And then it ended up getting canceled because of the weather. And I don't know if the airplane did not come. I'm not sure because we didn't go.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm, just the fact that, I mean, I certainly wasn't going to spring the money to put me or my son on it, but it still went through my mind. What if we'd gotten up there and I'd gotten caught up in the moment and done that? I mean, I can't help. I mean, I know we're trying to transition out of the bad stuff, but
sure.
I mean, I'm sorry, I can't help. Honestly, the first thing that went through my mind was, shit, that's the show that Jeff's friend was going to get his son a ride on the B-17. I hope to God he wasn't on it.
Yeah.
That was literally the first thing that went through my mind.
Yeah, because when you see the footage, you don't know it's in the middle of a choreographed show. You just thought it was
right.
just a freak accident, which it was.
And then it's like, what if we had gone to Coleman and I mean, as a dad, that was the first kind of the main thing that kept pounding my head. But yeah, it's just sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, I, that evening, right immediately after the air show, I met the guys that I served with at our annual reunion for Fox Troop 9th Cav in Grapevine, Texas. So I already knew that was going to be an emotional night.
Yeah.
And our medic that puts these reunions together, he's a Dallas firefighter. And he showed me, he said, let me show you where my station is. And it was literally like Dallas Executive Airport, where the air show was. Highway 35, Highway 35. And then his station. It was like maybe 4 miles. And he said, he said, dude, those trucks you saw there, that was my crew. That was my guys. So just what an incredibly small world. So naturally, he was the same way. He knew I was there for the air show. He's like, dude, what the heck happened? So, again, and that kind of really hammered in the importance of doing this, because to hang out with these guys, some of these guys literally I haven't seen since we got back from Baghdad in 2005. 17 years, man, since I've seen some of these guys that I fought next to. And it's such a surreal experience, because when you're with these guys and you're close, but you're not. And I don't know how to explain it, but you're with these guys, you're in these dynamic situations, you're all suffering together, but you probably, like, these guys may not necessarily be the guys that you'd want to hang out with and watch a football game with, kind of thing. Like you're forced together.
It's you don't get to pick your family. You don't get to pick your family, but they are your family in a certain way, and
right.
Only you can talk shit about them.
Yeah. So and it was just any grudges or any hard feelings or anything, they just go out the window at a reunion. I'm not saying that there ever were. I don't know, but we were a small unit to begin with. To have about 50 guys in our unit, and I want to say there was probably close to 9 or 10 of our original guys that stood up Fox Troop. There was maybe 9 or 10 there, and the rest were from the unit that it got rolled into. So we still had probably 20, 25 Joes that showed up. But to see 9 or 10 from the original troop was special. See my old first sergeant again. To find out that he retired, he's less than 30 minutes away from me.
Nice.
Had no clue, and really the most humbling thing for me is to hear them say, dude, I don't ever comment on your stuff, but I see your stuff on social media. I think it's amazing what you're doing, dude. Just, living the dream with World War II and history. They're like, man, we're just so proud of you. So proud that you're here. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, these guys, some of these guys have multiple Purple Hearts, man, have been through in modern combat, they've been through it all. Right. And to get, to hear that from them was just, it means a lot, man.
It's been a rough weekend, and I know we want to get off the subject at hand, but you just said something, and I just want to drive this home. You said it's a small world. Here's how small of a world it is. We're going to leave military history and war history, but we're going to stay on the topic of history. It's just real modern history. So as you guys know, I had to go to Kentucky for the funeral of my old roommate and school friend, and I did that Thursday. And I came home and I was talking to my nephew, and he said, I got to go to a funeral. I'm like, well, whose funeral do you got to go to? Dateline, Lexington, Kentucky. A northern Kentucky woman who was a nursing student at the University of Kentucky was among those killed after the huge Halloween party surge in South Korea. University president announced that the student, Annie Gesick, was among more than 150 people killed in the crowd surge at a traditional Halloween gathering in Seoul, South Korea. She was a junior nursing student at Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, who was studying in South Korea this semester with an education abroad program. And so my nephew actually worked at Skyline Chili with her for about 2 years. And you want to talk about small world. When this story broke all those weeks ago, never did I think that my nephew in Kentucky, who was the one who was born on 9/11, would have a classmate over in South Korea who would get it's just it's just like, jeez, what a small damn world. It's just and it goes back to the whole, hey universe, can you knock it off for a little bit? I'm already at a funeral, which I had to fly out Thursday. On Tuesday I just found out another one of my friends, 41-year-old that we talked about, passed away. Then the radio host that I worked for, he survived, but he had a heart attack that Friday. I fly to Kentucky. My nephew's going to a funeral, and then the Dallas thing happened. I'm just like, holy hell, can we get a break here? But yeah, so I wasn't going to talk about it, but you mentioned small world, and that's the first thing I thought. I'm like, holy hell, this girl's on the other side of the planet at this freak accident, and now my nephew's going to. It's just, you just never know. It's definitely a small world.
Yeah, it's just a cosmic coin toss with who gets to come back and who doesn't. And, those boys are, of course, they're pretty shaken up, especially the one that flew in it an hour and a half before it's gone. And, I said, boys, what do you think it was like? You're reenacting a generation of warriors. And don't you think they said the same thing? Like, dude, I was just talking to that guy. Mm-hmm. I was just there.
And I'm sure he took pictures while he was on the plane.
Oh, he's got GoPro footage. So yeah, here's the deal, man. So he, for landing and takeoff, he was sitting in the radio operator's chair, right? Once they were airborne, he got to go back to the waist gun. He got to walk across the catwalk in the bomb bay.
Really?
And, the flight engineer told him, like, they're load activated doors. If you fall over, they're opening up, right? So goes across the catwalk, goes up, talks, sits by the pilot and the co-pilot, the flight engineer's seat, hangs out up there. They let him go up in the top turret. He can spin the turret around and, up top and now, looking out. And
let's back up real quick. He's walking across the catwalk. Now, for those of you who don't remember the beginning of the story, he's not wearing Adidas. He's not wearing Nikes or a pair of Hey Dudes. He's got hobnail toes Weimar Republic boots on that do not exactly provide traction on wood and or steel.
Yeah.
So for him to venture across that, I could just imagine the sound of him walking through that plane with those hobnails on. When I was at the event 2 weeks ago at the train, one of my jobs was to drive my Tundra down the end of the line. And so when the Germans all died, I had to take a fleet of Germans back in my Japanese truck and hearing them come. Luckily, I got rhino liner in my bed. But yeah, just hearing them walking across my bed, I could imagine him tramping around in that plane while it's in the air with hobnails on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was, what an experience. It's the first time he's ever flown.
Never been in a commercial plane?
Nope.
Wow. I would like to see the look on his face when he literally left the ground for the first time, because that's always the scary part, is takeoff and landing.
Yeah. He said he didn't have any problem with it, and he said he felt a little queasy towards the end as they were coming for the landing because it's just unnatural, right? Yeah. He's never done it, and of course.
And you're not in a pressurized plane with nice insulation. It's loud and rickety and shaky.
Oh, that's what he was saying. He couldn't believe how loud it was. He said, on the takeoff, when they gunned the engines, it was like the whole airplane was coming apart, But it was really neat. They were talking to him about when the radio when they were transmitting between the aircraft, that little cable that would kind of come out and just kind of tether off, and just
act as an
float
antenna
behind the airplane as their antenna. And then when they were done talking, they would reel back into the airplane, and he just thought that was, really neat to think, just primitive ways of communicating in the air back then. And so for him to get that experience, nothing like it. I mean, really cool that his dad surprised him and when I told him that I was going to take him up there. I just thought that was so cool. And I'm glad his dad got to be there and watch him take off. They got so I think there was 8 passengers total, which was the last flight. That was a last flight of passengers on board, right? He literally was the last. Well, I take that back, because they flew for Pearl for the Tora, but they didn't have passengers, so they landed. And then again, to the great unknown that last time. But he got a picture of the whole crew, everybody with him, all standing out in front of the nose of the B-17, the whole flight crew, everybody he flew with, like a group picture right under the nose canopy. So, really special. And yeah, he said he's got GoPro footage and everything. So, if we're still planning on our youth episode a week from today, he'd love to talk about a little bit more in detail what that flight, was like, I'm sure.
Yeah. I was at my sister's last night because she had dropped me off the airport this morning, and I just turned it on because I turned on Fury, and she had never seen it. And it's interesting to watch that movie with someone who doesn't watch a whole hell of a lot of World War II movies and didn't see what was coming. But the funny part to me was, and I forget that a lot of people don't realize this, the scene where they're laying down the fire to rescue the infantry out of the ditch, and it got the tracer rounds going. She's like, they didn't have that back then, because she's used to seeing that shit in Star Wars. I'm like, no, we had it. Just most of the time the Americans were smart enough to take it out of the gun so they couldn't follow the traces back. I said, no, that technology was definitely around, but she thoroughly enjoyed it. Was definitely thrown off by a few parts of it, but I had seen that movie so many times that it was interesting to be in a room with someone who had never seen it and how it affected her in that way. So it was kind of cool to watch.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that about the tracers too, because I honestly feel like that's the absolute worst part of the movie. The tracers are extra Star Warsy.
Yeah,
I mean, they really are. They are. But it is what it is. Pretty good movie. But
yeah.
Anyway, so you're talking about your Memphis Belle photo shoot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you guys, of course, I love the Air Corps. So tying in with this group, man, I want to get the name right here, because Don, I mean, you would really, I know you'd really get a kick out of them too. They are the Army Air Corps Living History Group, DFW, Dallas Fort Worth. There was about 5 of them there, I want to say, total. And talking to the one guy who kind of seemed like he was kind of, the guy in charge, super nice. And let me tell you how this conversation went. We're both dressed in Air Corps stuff, right? And he's got his Mae West on and the sunglasses, the crusher, whole 9 yards. And I go up and he's got his little, I want to say it's like I'm not up on tents of World War II, okay? I don't really know tents very well, but it was like a small fly tent, but larger than a small fly, but that didn't have sides, right? So just kind of a peak, and then just kind of open down on the sides and open front to back. Just a big, large piece of canvas.
Now, there was no physical sides rolled up or none, right? It's just canvas? Just canvas on sticks? They refer to those as mess flies.
Right. Okay. So there's like a fly tent, but not okay. So a mess fly.
Yeah, sure. It's just basically canvas on sticks. There's no sides rolled up or nothing. Yep, it's just a fly.
Right. So, and he's got a field desk in there, or not field desk. This is like a little field table, a cot, a couple foot lockers opened up, display, little radio, and all the little British folding chairs.
Nice. Yeah.
And that's what the display was, just like a scramble tent.
My fat ass.
These guys hanging out. Yeah, just listening to the radio, getting ready for a mission, and being able to scramble. So, seeing all these guys in these A2s and all this amazing gear, just struck up a conversation with them. And the next thing I know, it was like, we're both like a couple of kids with our phones out, because, he builds model airplanes too. And he does, airfield
Jeff found his
dioramas.
doppelganger.
Okay, let me show you this. Your son's a reenactor. Oh my gosh. Well, let me show you my kid, as an airborne trooper. And he's showing me his kid as a Navy pilot, physically sitting in a Corsair cockpit, right? And then we're talking. I said, well, yeah, we're talking. Oh, the Jeep came up. I got a 42 GPW. I said, I just put a new fuel tank in. I still can't get it running. And he's like, I have a 45 GPW. I just put a new fuel tank in it. I can't get it running. It was like, did we just become best friends? Yep.
I've seen enough shows on.
Where have you been?
I've seen enough of those hot rod shows to know that oftentimes when you don't start, it's because the fuel pump's wired up backwards. So check the continuity on your fuel pump. You may be sucking instead of pushing.
My fuel pump does not have wires going to it.
It's vacuum.
That. It's
vacuum. Yeah. Speaking of which,
but anyway, so yeah, it was fun, and these guys are looking to link up with us at the Bluebonnet Air Show coming up in March. They're wanting to kind of get out more and bring their displays, be able to travel. The one guy, just talking with him tonight, he's actually the owner of a painted A2. That if you're familiar with John McGuire, and I think I've talked about one of the books before, Silver Wings, Pinks and Greens. Okay, it's like the most comprehensive about Air Corps, gear from World War I to World War II. He has one of the jackets that's in one of the McGuire books. It's photographed. Yeah, he was just showing me pictures of it. Big 8th Air Force painted on the back, and it's named. He's got documentation for it, everything. A named A2.
Yeah.
A named painted A2.
Where the paint hasn't flaked off or the leather hasn't scaled.
Right. Super cool. Super nice guys. So just made friends real quick. They let me hang out, pull up my Foot Locker, kick my shoes off. We shared some coffee and lunch together, and what a great way, and what a great bunch of guys to spend the first half of that air show with.
I got a little interesting way to break in my boots because, as I said earlier, my boots are relatively new. I've worn them the one event, but it's weird to think that 48 hours ago I was standing in my cousin's backyard in Indiana fishing in a lake when it was 31 degrees outside with snow on the ground. And then today I'm back here fishing when it's 87. But all I had on was I had those boots on walking around in snow. And I was like, wow, they actually kind of kept my feet pretty damn warm. I was half expecting them just to get real cold, but I just had on that, a hooded sweatshirt and my M41 over top of it. And I stayed pretty warm with the exception of my hands. My cousin kicked my ass. He caught 6 bass, only caught 1, but it was just kind of, being in Florida for all these years, it's just kind of nice to walk around in snow again. It's probably been 16, 17 years since I've had my feet on snow and had to scrape off a car window. So I'm sure I'll have I already got sniffles coming on. I think that's probably the recirculated air from the airplane, but it's just been a weird last four days or so.
Yeah.
So it's about that time of the show. What you reading, Henry?
I am still making my way through James Holland's Normandy 44 book. I'm probably 370 pages in. It's haven't, with everything going on, I have not had as much time to read as I would like, but I'm really enjoying it. It's a really good book.
How about you, Jeff?
Yeah. I just finished this up. Actually, I finished it Friday night when I was in Dallas in the hotel room. It's just called Fighting Squadron. This is it's a first edition. It came out in 1946 from a Navy pilot, Bob Winston. I want to make sure I said that right. Yeah, Commander Bob Winston. He was this is kind of the second book that he put out. So in this one, he starts out in Wildcats, goes to Hellcats. He's got like a winged meat cleaver as their squadron insignia. Cool. They were part of Task Force 58. But just such it's a quick read book. There's some pictures in here, but it's a pretty thin book. This is from 46. It's a first edition book, and so interesting to me. This guy actually joined, I want to say, in like 1935. So really flew some of those, really kind of crucial pre-war aircraft that the Navy had, where the Wildcat was like the cat's meow, right? And so it's about him kind of, he's kind of at the end of his, kind of the old guy. I want to say here he's like in his late 20s, so he's kind of the geezer. But the war has come on, and he's really wanting to get back. He wants to get a fighting command, so he goes back in. He kind of leaves his desk job, and he tries out to get back in the pilot seat again. So he's stateside, and he's flying these Wildcats, and gets hung up in a collision in the air with another Wildcat. They were on a diving, like a high side strafing run. And a Wildcat behind him just overruns him, just loses it in this high-speed dive, and kind of comes in and clips the back of his canopy right over his head. Just think about this, another Wildcat being that close to your head, right? Hits the canopy, skids down, across the front of the cowling, knocks out his propeller, right? The other Wildcat just wildly plummets to earth. Pilot's dead. He's all banged up, dead sticks it. Lands, and he was stationed outside like Atlantic City, New Jersey for this at the air station down there, and dead sticks it into the field and hits a bunch of pine trees. And the picture of the wreck is like unbelievable that he walked out of it, right? Just some bumps and bruises. Gets back in. Then he's got his squadron. He's training his guys. They're in SNJs. And he's talking about all these young kids, right? These brand new ensigns and Lieutenant JGs, 20, 22-year-old kids. They're hot dogging it in their SNJs. And they're, of course, the natural, hey, guys, don't go that far out. No dogfighting, this and that, So, of course, what happens?
They go out that far and they dogfight.
Young dudes will be young dudes. And there was two that were in the SNJ together. Both of them were having a double wedding that Saturday, and they're hot dogging with another SNJ. Boom, both those two guys are gone now. So there's all of these accidents. Then I think there's another accident on a shakedown when they're landing on a static carrier in Maryland. Then he finally gets Hellcats, and talking about learning how to fly the Hellcat. He said he was not as badly as he wanted to get in one. Not quite as easy to maneuver as a Wildcat. Of course, he said it was really cool that you didn't have to do this, crank the landing gear up,
29 times.
Right, yeah. So, and I thought it interesting that he didn't realize the first time he flew one, he did not have the harness with the seat cushion attached to, with your raft in it.
Mm-hmm.
You need that to fly in a Hellcat, or you cannot see. The seat is so deep. And I think the Corsairs were the same way, if I'm not mistaken. You have to have that.
They built the saddle around the seat cushion.
Right.
Otherwise, it's like the old lady in the old Buick with the head below the steering wheel.
Exactly. So that's the first time he flew a Hellcat. That's how it was. He didn't have the cushion, so he couldn't see, and he thought it really felt sluggish at first because he's used to that Wildcat. And so then of course they deploy to the Pacific, and they do not actually see combat during the turkey shoot. He was on a CVL, so he wasn't on a main escort, or he wasn't on a main carrier. So they kind of did the combat air patrols and strafed a bunch of islands. Some islands, guys, island names I've never heard of. That we hit, probably little army operations.
Yeah.
It was part of some outer cordon of a main invasion in the Marianas or the Marshalls, something like that. Of course, he talks about Truk, of course, and Tinian and Saipan, and whatever, however you say the Wotje Island. Wachi, yeah, Malialap and all the other, Henry.
That's the worst
Henry
part
knows.
about being in the Pacific Theater is trying to say the names of all the Japanese hierarchy and then the islands.
And a lot of the names have changed through the years.
Yeah,
sure, yeah. So great book. That's I just finished it up Friday. I really enjoyed it. I recommend if you could even possibly get a hold of it. But.
So I'm on the last chapter of Brothers in Arms, Best of Friends, the Wild Bill Garnier and Babe Heffron story. We often talk about a lot of the artistic licensing, if you will, that they did in HBO's Pacific. But one of the artistic licensing that stood out that was brought to my attention from this book, and this is my second time reading it, so I knew it before, but I just happened to forget. Babe was not there when Julian got shot. In the show, they show them, out on patrol, and Babe's down behind the log trying to crawl out and get him and all that. he was back on his machine gun, but he was back in his foxhole in backup position in case they made contact and came back. So he never actually got to see Julian. They did, in fact, recover his body later when his squad came back and told him that, you want to come see him. He said, no, I don't want to see him like that. I don't want that to be my last memory. And so that was one of the things that stood out. And then, but it's kind of cool at the end of the book, Garnier's talking about all the surgeries he had and how him and Joe Toy were, they would be in the hospital for 30, 40 days, have surgery, then go home for a weekend or two, and then go back. And it took almost a year for him and Toy to get the amputations completed. And one thing I didn't realize is Garnier had a prosthetic leg until 1962, and somehow the prosthetic leg, I don't know if maybe it was a type where they kind of embedded the rod into your bone to attach this thing with or whatever. He didn't really get into great detail. He just said that it was causing enough problems that every time they tried to fix it, it was affecting his other leg in some way, shape, or form, and then that's how he ended up going straight to the crutches. But he got accustomed to walking on it, and he, after the war and after he lost his leg, his fiancée Franny, her family was trying to tell him, hey, you don't want to, you need to find another guy to get hooked up with because you're going to be taking care of him as he gets older. And so he never let it affect him, and he would do construction and carpentry and this and that and the other thing on his leg. And then when he switched to crutches, he had to change things up. And him and Babe worked down at the docks as part of a union. There's a great story where they're doing a union strike, and guess they worked on the trains. They load the trains. It had something to do with the trains down by the docks, and they're on union strike. And so one of the foremen gets in the train because he's not going to put up with it. So Garnier sits down by the track and puts his missing leg that no one knew he had on the track. That he was hoping the train would run it over, make it look like he got hit, but the train stopped, and he ended up getting arrested and getting busted down. But it's a good book. But I bought this book a long time ago that Jeff has already read, and so after I finish up this last chapter on that book, I'm finally going to break into Bloody Ridge and Beyond. And so I'm looking forward to this one. It's been
Who wrote that?
This is by Larry Alexander.
Whitey.
Yeah, Marlon Whitey Groft and New York Times bestselling Larry Alexander. So, yep, I'm excited to read this one and get back into my Pacific reading after venturing off. I'm still trying to get them on the show. I got to reach out to her here this week, but so that's what I'm looking into getting read up on. I saw my dad today. He picked me up at the airport. He's still, interestingly enough, turns out we both have the same insurance company. So he, as you all know, he got 4 feet of water, and he's like, I just wish the insurance company would just deny my claim because then FEMA would give me a trailer. But so, oh, by the way, when you fly into Fort Myers, and I had forgot because I haven't flown in years because my family lives 17 hours away, so I usually drive. But since it was just me, it was cheaper to fly, especially with gas prices are what they are today and food. But when you fly back into Southwest Florida, you actually, part of the landing path is over Fort Myers Beach. And so I got to see it from above. And for those who don't know, that was Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel were ground zero for Hurricane Ian, and that's where everything got decimated. And there's not almost, with the exception of the blue tarps on the roofs of what houses are still standing, as far as vegetation goes, it's very reminiscent to like what you hear about Peleliu or Tarawa. There's not a damn tree left on the island. It's just all sand and broken down. Like all the vegetation is just about gone. It's insane. I have a video clip of it. I'll probably put it on my YouTube channel later. But so it was weird. It's kind of nice getting out of town because even though it's been over 30 days, you drive down the street and there's, the trash pickup hasn't taken care of the large debris. You still see roofs torn off and everybody's personal effects out in the yard. So with the exception of having power and internet, when you drive through these neighborhoods, it's like it just happened 2 days ago. So I was really looking forward to getting out of town and getting a change of scenery, literally. And then, like, boom, flying back in before I even got touchdown, flew right over Fort Myers Beach. And so, oh, yeah, we're back at it. And but no, it was a nice little getaway. And just want to say thanks to all the listeners for your all's continued support. And please head over to WTSPWorldWar2.com. Click on that Patreon link, sign up, and subscribe. You guys will help get the show, keep us doing what we're doing. And I want to thank Jeff and Henry, as always, and each and every one of you. And we will be back. We can do this on the air. Is next weekend Thanksgiving, or is it the following weekend?
Well,
see, this is what happens when you got three old dudes, and none of our wives keep track of this crap we hold. So
it's a week from this Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah, the 24th.
Yeah.
So okay. So we'll have a show on. No, yeah. So Monday's the 21st. So we'll be back next week, but we may be gone the 28th because it's going to be maybe a extended Halloween Thanksgiving weekend. So yes, we should be back next week, and don't be surprised if we're not here on the 28th because of holidays and such. But I want to thank everybody, and we will talk to you all next week.
This has been a Digital 410 production.